I'm Sharon Bill. Welcome to my Music Theory Tuition series where I work with you step by step through the ABRSM Discovering Music Theory grades. I'll work through every single exercise and explain everything you need to know. You can access information about the books I have available to help you on my website. Go to sharonbill.com. For advert-free and longer lessons, you can become a patron at patreon.com/SharonBill. If you can give me a like, that would be super, and please do subscribe to my channel to stay updated. You can support this channel by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/SharonBill. We're moving on to page 9 in the Grade 5 Discovering Music Theory workbook, and this is the last page of the first chapter. So we're just going to complete this chapter. Exercise 11 asks us to circle the correct time signature for each of these bars. Now I suggest that you don't even look at the time signature options at first, just figure out what's going on, because you can easily get confused and just sort of start guessing, whereas it's best to figure out exactly what's going on and then you just circle the one that you know is the correct answer. And here, before we even start figuring out whether we're counting in crotchet beats or minim beats or whatever, or quaver beats, let's figure out what's going on here, because we need to see how the notes are grouped to tell us what the bottom number is going to be. What unit beat are we counting in? So first of all, let's figure out what's going on here. 3 in the time of 2. So this triplet means these 3 semiquavers are played in the time of 2 semiquavers. And 2 semiquavers is the same value as 1 quaver. So these are all grouped together in a quaver beat. And then we have a quaver beat here. And we have a semiquaver and a semiquaver rest, which gives us a quaver beat. So we've got a quaver beat and a quaver beat, which gives us a crotchet beat. So you might at first think, well, we're counting in crotchet beats because we've got a crotchet beat here and a crotchet beat here, but then we're left with this odd quaver beat. So we're going to be in an irregular time signature, aren't we? And we can't choose a crotchet beat because although there are 2 full crotchet beats here, that leaves us with a kind of a random quaver beat left over, which we can't explain as belonging to a crotchet beat time signature, because you can't just have 1 quaver left on its own. So it must be quaver beats. And so now we know that we're counting in quaver beats. We know to divide this crotchet into 2 quaver beat units. And so we can see that we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quaver beats. And now we know that's going to work perfectly. And we have the same scenario again. Are we counting in quaver beats? Are we counting in crotchet beats? Or are we counting in semiquaver beats? Well, let's see what's going on here. Now, here are some clues. Because why are these dotted quaver beats on their own and not grouped? So let's just see how this pans out. We know that 1 quaver divides into 2 semiquavers, and then half as much again gives us another semiquaver. So we have a group of 3 semiquavers. Here we have another group of 3 semiquavers, and that tells us we're in compound time. So let's see now how this works out. We can't count this in quavers because we're always left with a semiquaver over. Here we have a quaver, which is worth 2 semiquavers and another semiquaver. So we're going to have to count this in semiquavers. The way it's grouped, we're going to have to explain this in groups of 3 semiquavers, because we can't count it in quavers, because that would mean this semiquaver and this semiquaver would be the same group, and they're obviously not. So 1 quaver again divides into 2 semiquavers and a semiquaver rest. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 semiquavers, 12 over 16, which is quadruple time in compound time. Let's have a look at this next one. So before we get carried away with anything else, let's figure out what's going on here. And that will help us to decide what our bottom number is going to be, because this is grouped to show us the unit beat. So we have 6 semiquavers that will be played in the time of 4 semiquavers. So 4 semiquavers we know is the equivalent to 1 crotchet beat. So we have a crotchet beat here, we have a crotchet beat here, and then here a quaver is half of a crotchet beat. The dot is half as much again, so we have 3/4 of a beat here, and then this rest, this semiquaver rest, completes the crotchet beat. So we have 1, 2, 3 crotchet beats, and so that will nicely explain that. Now looking ahead at exercise D, we have a clue here. That is our clue, because that tells us that this group of 2 quavers is going to be stretched and played in the time of 3. There's our clue. We're counting in a group of 3 quaver beats, and that's confirmed here because here's 1 quaver beat, here's another quaver beat, and then half of that is a semiquaver, and here's the other semiquaver. So the dot and the semiquaver give us our 3rd quaver beat. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quaver beats. We have 2 groups of 3, that's duple time in compound time. Let's look at this next one. So are we counting this in crotchets or quavers? Well, at first glance, you think we might be counting it in crotchet beats. However, that doesn't then explain this, because we can't just have an odd crotchet. So there's another crotchet beat, but this kind of tells us we're probably not going to be counting in crotchet beats. So we're going to have to consider this in quaver beats. Let's look what happens here. So we have 4 demi-semis, which we know is a quaver, and then we have a semiquaver and a semiquaver rest, which is another quaver. So we could think, well, there's a crotchet beat, there's a crotchet beat, there's a crotchet beat, but this is still a problem. We can't have half a beat left over, so we're going to have to figure this out in quaver beats. So we know that a crotchet divides into 2 quavers. There's a quaver, so there's a quaver. The dot is a semiquaver's worth. There's a semiquaver, which makes a quaver beat. There's a quaver, there's a quaver. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 quaver beats, and so that will answer our purpose. Let's move on. Exercise F. Now we need to figure out what we're going to be counting in. Are we counting in minim beats? Are we counting in crotchet beats? It's unlikely we'll be counting in quaver beats because there's just going to be too many going on. So let's try and see what happens here. Let's figure out what's going on here first. 5 quavers in the time of 4 quaver beats. And we know that 4 quaver beats, because quaver, quaver equals crotchet, quaver, quaver equals crotchet. So that's going to give us a minim beats worth. There's a minim, there's a minim. And so it looks like that's going to work out because a crotchet and 2 quavers gives us another minim. So we can be counting in minim beats 1, 2, 3, and that will work perfectly. And so finally, let's look at this last example. So G asks us here, now here's our clue again. We know that that's a duplet, which means 2 stretched into the time of 3. So we have 2 crotchets which will be played in the time of 3 crotchets. So that's our clue. And then here we can see 1, 2, 3 crotchet beats again. So let's see what we've got here. This should work out in a group of 3 again. Here's 1 crotchet, and then half of that is a quaver beats worth, and there's another quaver. So those 2, the dot and the quaver, give us a crotchet beat. There's a crotchet beat, and so there is our group of 3. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 crotchet beats, and that is that it does say that we could have some revision on page 85. However, I suggest that you wait and you save that as a revision exercise later when we've had a chance to forget about it a little bit. So that will help us to refresh our memory after we've done some other topics in the meantime. I hope this is helpful to your studies. Please do like and subscribe to stay updated. If you'd like to support this channel, you can buy me a coffee, and for advert-free lessons you can become a patron. Do visit my website where you'll find many resources available to help you. Visit sharonbill.com. Thanks for watching. Bye.